let me just okay, I've started. So hi Kizito. I thought we could just start. I never do intros in the podcast. I do the intros like separately. So don't worry about like me saying hi listeners. That no, I just get right into it.
Okay. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so in this episode of Madhouse, we speak to Kizito Ahams about how he got into the music industry and all the cool things he's been up to. Enjoy the episode. Let's just, for those listening to this podcast, I think just introduce yourself, who you are, and like what you do, where you're from. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, hey guys, my name is Kizito Ahams. Yeah. I'm a lawyer based in Nigeria. Okay. I work with Moving Records as licensing and publishing officer. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm getting closer to my 30s than I wanted to be.
Yeah.
It's happening too fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the nature of my job basically is I work as licensing and publishing officer. Okay. I look after Maven's catalogs, the publishing department, with everything that has to do with getting legal authorizations to use our musical compositions and our recordings. Okay. I also prepare agreements, bordering on releases, collaborations, features, and independent releases by our roster artists. Okay. I obviously get to do a whole lot of negotiations with producers, recording artists, and record label with regards to percentages for the split sheets and basically for the royalties and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's really a lot.
But the interesting part of my job, please don't tell my bosses this, or tell them. The interesting part of my job for me is having to spearhead the sync department. So basically, synchronization is the connection of music to moving objects and sounds. So you have examples of obviously music being in movies, television, and video games. Yeah. So such conversations are really, really exciting, and that's the cool part of my job, I think.
Yeah. I should just come to Nigeria just to shadow you for like a day and just see how the work goes. So I want to know, when did it start? Like, did you music, like for me, I'm very curious, like your early days, like where did you think you were going to be dealing with all this within the music industry, or like how did your early days, like I'm curious, like the young Kizito somewhere in Nigeria, were you thinking of like, hey, I want to be a licensing, or I want to be in like in the record business, and I'd be a lawyer and just help with all the legalities and all these other fine minutiae of like the recording industry? But like, I'm very curious how you started and how it began for you.
Yeah, so for me, I will be honest and say I never really expected to work in a record label stricto sensu. But growing up, I always knew I had interests working with creatives and working in the creative side. Okay. Yeah, so obviously when I was much, much younger, I wanted to be a lawyer, save the world, well, like stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. But I just got more realistic with my expectations with life and stuff. So I just knew that, okay, I could do what I wanted to do, but I could do it. Obviously, I could change the world in my own little way, but not necessarily by going to court. Of course, I had my own experiences going to courts. Yeah. I was really active in criminal law and stuff like that. Okay. But at a point in time, I just knew this wasn't for me. Okay. I really, really had to work on that creative side and work with creatives.
Okay. Did you have any creative people in your life? Because I'm very curious how like this other creative bug sort of hit you. Were your parents creative? Or did you have siblings who were creative? What is the passion that you have for like creative industries, especially that you now work in the music industry? But like, what is like that? Where did it come from? Where do you think from your growing up?
Okay, so I'm not going to make any false pretenses and say my brother owned the record label or he was super talented. Nothing of that sort. Yeah. But growing up, obviously, I was really, really influenced by my siblings, who obviously had a very, very interesting and robust interest in music. Obviously, different genres of music. Yeah. So I was always the guy listening to different kinds of songs from my brothers, and I was always back in university. I was. I wouldn't call this your exact kind of creativity, but I was in the debate team. So obviously, I was in the debate team and I was the president for a long while. So obviously, I had I had people in my team with different crazy ideas, and would go around, have competitions, and would win and stuff like that. So it was always me sitting down, understanding how people came about with creative ideas, and be it in speeches, be it in poetry, and stuff like that. So obviously, the literary aspect of the debating team was, I think, it was a strong part for me, and obviously my interest in music here in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So it just kind of culminated into something I could do while having an interest, obviously being a lawyer in the making, and having strong interest in intellectual property, and kind of having a way to put those my passions and such soft skills which I already had into a career path. So when the opportunity for Maven came, I just saw it like, okay, I think this is a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. You've said something very interesting about like debating and like music and creativity, and it's so interesting that like music is about like evoking emotions with like words and melody. And like so interesting that also what you do as a lawyer and what you're doing in the debate club was really trying to convince people about certain emotional things with words. It's just very like that thought just hit me when you said debate club, and I was like, oh, that's fun. It's like debating is like music in a way.
You couldn't have said it better.
Yeah. I'm curious. Did you get straight into the music industry when you like left law school, and like you just or did you first do other kind of law things before you got?
So yeah, exactly. When I left law school and obviously the university, I didn't just get straight into the music. So it was more like me saying, okay, bro, you're a lawyer now. It's time for you to start going to court. So obviously I had my early days going to court and having those boring, I won't say boring, I don't want to be assaulted later, but having those boring experiences going to courts and representing clients and knowing that, okay, this is something I just have to do because everybody says I just have to do it. But it doesn't, I won't say it was something I found particularly interesting, but I just knew that my skills could be better put into somewhere else where I would obviously make a greater impact. So when the opportunity for Maven came, I said, okay, this is something I could actually do. And it was something I just found. It was just natural to me. So it was just like, fish to water.
When did you join Marvin? When did you join the Marvin?
Not so long, actually. Not so long. I joined Maven last year. Early last year. So 1 year plus in the game.
Okay. That's nice.
With Maven anyway. Anyway.
Okay. Did you have any like music experience before you joined Marvin? Like were you like, because like when I go on the internet and just do like research on like especially the stuff you do, especially the legalities and then the contracts behind like the music business or the music industry, they seem to be it seems so complex. So like there's so many tiny little details here and there, and I'm curious about like, did you do like even before the year, were you like really like as a side thing, just like curious about what were you doing just to like prepare yourself for, or did you just figure it out when you joined Marvin?
Yeah, so exactly. I would say no. It's a very very unique space. Obviously, like you've rightly pointed out, it's a very unique space, and it gets really really technical. So I don't think for any lawyer to function at the highest level, you wouldn't have any skills related to licensing or publishing. As the case may be. So obviously, it was something that I knew that I wanted to do. So I started obviously taking courses in that regard. I obviously just developed a big interest. I was doing as much reading as I could. I had a couple of mentors whom I was watching closely. You know, when you sometimes have mentors, but they don't even know you're mentors, but you're just stalking them on social media.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like someone one time told me that like in this age we live in, like someone can be my mentor and then I never meet them just because we can
they have no clue
on the internet and just like follow what they're doing and like find as much material on their stuff, and in that sense they're mentoring me. And I was like, that's a very interesting like way to think about mentors. And when you said you're just stalking your mentors and it's just on the internet, just feels very the same idea of like you can be my mentor without me actually ever meeting me physically or knowing me as a person.
Yeah, it's 2021, baby. So sometimes I don't necessarily think I am popular. Obviously, I'm not popular. I think so, but I'm slowly developing a growing presence. So when people meet me every once in a while and say, "Okay, hey, I know you. You work with Maven. I saw something you posted not too long ago on LinkedIn." I'm like, "Bro, I don't know you." But obviously, I just know that this is how. Obviously, I was doing it when I was coming up to. I was studying a whole lot of people. I was doing a whole lot of heavy reading.
Yeah.
But somehow, I just knew that this was the part I just wanted to be in. So when I see younger people coming up and saying that, okay, I inspired them in one way or the other, I can relate. Even though obviously sometimes I cringe, but I can relate because that's exactly what I was doing.
Okay. That's awesome. I'm very curious. I mean, supposedly in the Madhouse Podcast and Secret Silent Podcast about creativity, problem solving, and all these cool things. I'm very curious about like if you could share like stories of like at least like a success story and a failure story, and how you sort of like either from a failure story, how you sort of adjusted to the failure and learned from that failure, and then from a success, how you sort of like won at something, and then how you sort of like figured a way to like grow from that success.
Yeah, so I think there are quite a few. Obviously, people would have had such similar experiences.
Yeah.
But for me, like you rightly mentioned, I've not been. I won't say I've been in this particular space for that long an amount of time.
Yeah.
But when I joined, my early days, when I joined, I did a whole lot of obviously understudying.
Yeah.
I understudied a fantastic lawyer called Olayemi Oladapo.
Okay.
I understudied him for a while, and at a particular point in time, we had an opportunity. We had an opportunity for one of the records of our artists in person of Rema.
Okay.
For a song of his to be licensed to EA Sports for FIFA 21.
Okay. Nice.
So that particular point in time, we obviously submitted the songs and we had the conversations and we're hoping for the song to get licensed and everything. Then, lo and behold, later we're told that, that particular song cannot be licensed due to some particular reasons bordering on some particular right holders in the songs being signed to some particular PROs. So it was at that point in time for me, I was like, oh no, this is supposed to be a career highlight of sorts. For me. Of course, nobody gets to know I did jack shit about it. But I just wanted to have that feeling in my heart that okay, I was part of something this special and something great. But the song wasn't selected. And for a minute, obviously I wasn't showing it in the office, but for a minute I was like, no, this just couldn't be. But it eventually happened that another song of his was selected for the game. And although he didn't necessarily make, of course it was FIFA 2021 and everything. He didn't necessarily make the normal expected, I don't know if you're much into video gaming. He didn't normally make the normal FIFA gaming, like when you put it up and you play your classic games and the music comes in. It went into another version of the Volta.
Okay.
But it was there. But the game was there. So basically, I just got to know that sometimes that opportunities don't necessarily present themselves how you'd expect them to be and how you would want them to be. But it's an opportunity regardless. And when those opportunities eventually come, it's just the function of you grabbing it and hoping for the best next time. So several times we obviously get to pitch a lot of our records. Pitch a lot of our records to video gaming companies, to publishers, and TV shows and what have you. But it doesn't always get the kind of success that we would always want to get. But there's always that moment where that song you never expected gets to make the cuts, and then you're good to go for a couple of months. You have that pump and that energy.
That's nice.
To try again.
That's nice. And then any wins you'd want, like I know you've worked for Marvin like you said about a year. So I'm very curious if you're how you have like sort of the things you have won at and how that has made you a better licensing and publishing officer at the level.
Yeah, so I would say one of my greatest wins is our publishing department, which I am currently spearhead. So our publishing department, we've had a couple of activations, which in recent times have been, we have something really, really big coming up later this year. I can't say lip sealed. Signed some of the agreements to say anything right now. But that should be like a major moment for me this year. It's a major licensing conversation, something that has not happened in recent times in this part of West Africa. So proud to then we had having the likes of songs by Rema being licensed to platforms like Snapchat. Snapchat, beats by parts of countries not necessarily countries like Eastern Europe, countries that we don't necessarily every time come out and say we're having conversations with, or having such songs being placed in such situations. I think it's an important win for me in my young and growing career and being part of those conversations.
I think that's nice. That's nice. I'm very curious to understand like what your take on Africa's music like industry spaces, as fact that you're sort of working at a certain level. Marvin, I mean, is one of those labels within Africa that is sort of really trying to really export and really put African music on certain spaces. But I'm very curious to see what your perspective is in the space and where do you think it's going, and maybe what you hope young creators, especially in the music space, should be doing to sort of get to a certain space. I don't know, like share like something that you.
Okay, for that, I think there's never been a better time in the history of African music and Afrobeats to be a musician from Africa.
Yeah,
I think so. So I think with the spike in conversations pertaining to Black Lives Matter, the need for more inclusion and diversity, it's a very opportune time for Afrobeats.
Yeah.
So right now, more than ever, our music is breaking newer grounds all over the world, in the diaspora. Everybody wants to relate to music coming in from Africa. Everybody wants to relate to the Afrobeat music.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't hurt that for the first time ever.
Yeah.
We have a song from here in Nigeria making it to the Billboard Top 100.
Nice.
That's Wizkid and Essence, Wizkid and Thames Essence.
Yeah. Okay.
So at this particular point in time, it's a big moment for Afrobeats. And also it doesn't hurt that not too long ago we won the Grammys. Shout out to Burna Boy and Wizkid. So it gives more, in as much as they're not necessarily people in my label. It gives my work and the works of artists, talent in my label, greater validation. Because right now, when we go outside and we're having these conversations and we're saying, you should listen to African music. African music should make it to big blockbuster movies. African movies should make it to EA Sports video games. It gives us more validation because our conversations now have the testament of success that have been recorded by other people and weight, exactly. So as opposed to before when they said it, they were like, okay, African music, okay, let's just show them some mercy and give them one placement. But right now, they really, really, really are vested in the music.
Okay, that's
and it has never before been at this level. So shout out to people who obviously set the ball rolling. The likes of D'banj and Don Jazzy, which had the Oliver Twist break into London at the very, very high level at that particular point in time. And other people who have obviously sold their little parts of credibility to the genre. So yes, for people who are currently interested in the Afrobeat space, I would say, like I said earlier, there's no better time than now. So it's just a function of obviously you just being more vested in the music and doing it the right way. Because the sound now has gotten greater acceptance. There's greater acceptance. Everybody really loves the music. There's no better time than now.
That's nice. And what are your takes on like other African music markets? I know there's like Afrobeats, but then there's like stuff from like where I'm from, like East Africa and then South Africa, and a bit of like, I think beats sort of down, I think around Namibia, down Ghana. What are your takes on those music markets? And like, do you think they have, I mean, like in terms of their contribution, do you think they have like a contribution to like the general conversation about like music from Africa?
A phenomenal contribution, obviously. I'll give you a couple of pockets of examples and how they've contributed to the greater conversations. I'll give you examples of how Amapiano right now, it sound obviously coming from the southern part of Africa. And obviously other touching into other parts of East Africa has kind of right now formed a greater conversation of what music in Africa should be, what music in Africa can be. So I would say the need for collaborations right now has never been more important than now.
Or internally, like a lot of like African artists just
Africans within Africans collaborating with Africans. Because if we want to push the genre forward or we want to push African music forward, the the big guys also have to now have these conversations and have these collaborations with artists, obviously making great music from their own corners in Africa.
Yeah.
Right now, I look at statements bordering on listenership from Africa. I see that the eastern part of Africa, our brothers in Uganda, in Kenya, are obviously really, really interested in the culture. They're avid listeners of Afrobeat. They're avid listeners of the works that we have over here. And the likes of the O'Malays and the Thames and the Wizkids and the Remas, they're obviously doing great numbers in that part of the continent.
Yeah. Very true. It's a lot.
So
it's heavy here. Like it's
really it's heavy. It's heavy. There's great acceptance. There's great love. And you would look back in time and you'd remember times when we had sounds like the Azonto coming from Ghana. Penetrating other parts of the African market, and everybody wants to align with that sound. Like so I think Lingala, it's just from like and Lingala, exactly. And Lingala, shout out to the great legends that obviously did it before all of us. So back when I was younger, back when I was much younger, I don't think I wanted to bother myself about Nigerian music when we had Awilo Logomba.
It's like everyone knows.
Shout out to the likes of Olumide, people that obviously set the parts before every other parts. Phenomenal music. Phenomenal music, which has obviously translated to and graduated to different shores of the greater part of the world. So I think there's no better time than now for collaboration, internal collaboration, and the conversations like this obviously make it easier for other people to follow and see what's happening in different parts. To understand the music.
Because it feels like a lot of people don't understand how like music is made, or even like how to like make it work. And when you say that a lot of internal collaboration, that makes so much sense, because sometimes sometimes it seems like everyone's like, especially people in East Africa, seem to be like in their camp and they don't seem to want to like get out of it. And when you're saying, hey, I think we need to like reach out to some more Nigerians, and Nigerians need to reach out to more guys in East Africa and like things like that. So that like, I guess even like the sounds start intertwining, that now it just becomes a whole other thing. Afrobeats evolves to a whole other thing, which is, I think, very exciting for like African music going forward.
And not necessarily, when I say collaborations, so these collaborations don't necessarily have to be recording artists collaborating all the time. We could have examples of producers from East Africa collaborating with artists here in Nigeria, and vice versa. Songwriters, there should also be a bigger place for songwriters, because I feel the nuances that we have in our music obviously gets to transcend beyond our shores. So when we have music that have nuances from East Africa or somewhere in West Africa, penetrating North Africa or South Africa and finding its way to the diaspora, it makes it more colorful and more tasteful for the listeners at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. Like, I mean, like the thought is very exciting of like a producer from North Africa and like maybe a writer from West Africa and an artist from East Africa making like one song would be something.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think we should just copyright. We should like bleep out this part of the podcast.
It's free. Let them have it.
And then after this, I can say, let's sit down with Marvin and something, because this could be gold mine. Yeah. Anyway, I'm very curious about how labels, especially labels like Marvin, work, and like what your experience has been like so far working in a label environment, because like most label environments in this country are more like management companies, but Marvin seems to have really tapped into that, sort of trying to really play with the big boys. I mean, the Sonys and the UMGs of this world. But like, I'm very curious, like, what your work experience is like at Marvin.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I would be as honest as possible with you with regards to how structures like this work.
Yeah.
How structures like this, how the simple explanation or summary of how we are doing it is the fact that there is no blueprint. So there's no blueprints. Doing it on this level, at this high level, it's never been done in this part of Africa.
Very true.
It's never been done. So it takes an extreme high level of commitment and resilience and attention to detail and understanding the broader perspective and the broader picture for a label like Maven to work. So I would also say that the systems that have been put in place.
Okay.
The systems have been put in place, obviously by our founder, and it also doesn't hurt the fact that we have a founder whose background is in music.
Very true. Very true.
So we having a founder like Don Jazzy, who is a legendary producer here in Africa, who has had experiences making records with the likes of the Jay-Z's and the Jay-Z's and the Kanye West, and having that international exposure from all over the world, coming back to Nigeria and deciding that it's time to put in such similar structures here in Nigeria, and having a visionary CEO like Tega Ogenejobo, who obviously is really, really rooted in the business and putting them proper structures together. So I think it doesn't hurt when you have people who understand the music and understand the importance of culture.
Yeah.
Running a label like this in Nigeria. And like I said earlier, there's been no structure. There's no blueprint.
Yeah.
It's never been done before.
I guess Don Jazzy and everyone else must just be winging it as they go and like just hoping for the best and like just doing their very best. I guess.
Winging it doesn't necessarily give it as much credit.
Yeah, but like not. Yeah, but like because I'm saying like it's such a new, like what Marvin has done from my observation seems to be still like very virgin space. Like not a lot of people in the even in entertainment or the business space is really trying to push to that kind of level of like trying to really put music in that space and trying to like, because I think like what I liked with Marvin is that they were really trying to hold their own without a lot of like the labels here seems like they hold their own until like a big like Sony or UMG comes in and then they hand over the artist to that label. But Marvin seems to want to like keep their artist without that sort of like, which I think is quite awesome for like African music going forward.
Yeah. I think my reaction to that will be it's not easy to run a record label here in Nigeria, and I think anywhere in Africa.
Yeah.
Because there are a plethora of reasons.
Yeah.
One of the reasons will be the fact that people don't necessarily have the right level of education as to how to actually make it work. Yeah. So you would have a couple of people who just have some money and they see a talent and they would want to, this is me making air quotes now, want to invest in the talents. And the investing in the talents here now would be without a whole, without a lot of necessary foundations that are important to actually make an artist thrive.
Yeah, like a system to make the artist live. Like it's like someone just has a rich manager, basically.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
And then it's like, but you need systems, you need people, you need to make the whole business around your music work. And like it's just.
For example, you have a 19 or 20-year-old artist. You see him in the street. This is me giving a hypothetical example. Yeah. So you see a 19 or 20-year-old artist, you just see him or her on the street, super talented, and you throw him in the studio all of a sudden, and he cooks up something, and you expect it to to become a hit. So even if, for instance, it becomes a hit, what's the continuity plan?
Yeah.
So that artist has no A&R development.
Very true.
That artist has no background on how the music business should be run.
Yeah.
You probably have no recording or publishing agreements for that artist.
Yeah.
There's no plan for how the business of that artist can get opportunities for other business to business opportunities, so to speak, or how that music can travel, how you intend for that artist's music to penetrate global markets.
Yeah.
No idea on royalty collection.
Yeah.
So it's a whole lot of conversation. Yeah. So most people just see it and like the idea of wanting to run a record label without having the right level of education or the resilience to go all the way about it.
Yeah, we shall blame American record label executives for painting a certain
that's the easy way out.
For painting a lifestyle that everyone wants, but they don't tell them that, hey, to get to become the CEO of UMG, I had to sort of do this sort of work, and I know, So yeah, but I understand what you mean by like the idea of like building a label is hard work and it requires you putting in the work to build systems so that when artists come, they're not just, as you said, like I said before, they're not winging it. Like there's a system, and this is how it works, and it sort of works to at least, even if something doesn't work out, at least there were some wins, and because the system sort of supported the win or the failure, but there's a system, and no one is like sort of pulling their hair out to make something happen.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Before we end the podcast, I'm very I usually ask guests to answer like just in your whole life as you try and figure out, I mean, from being a normal lawyer and then joining Marvin and now doing this whole licensing and all these cool things you're working on. I'm very curious to find out one life lesson that you have learned throughout it all that you think our listeners, whether they're just listening or like whether they're in the music industry, one life lesson that you think they should apply in their either creative process or in their life that you think they can take on and like just do something awesome.
Yeah, so for me, I want to be garrulous, but I think I have more than one.
Yeah.
And one thing is, don't die wondering, man. I keep on saying this everywhere I go. Don't die wondering. If you have...
don't die wondering. That's a t-shirt, I think.
Yeah, put it in the shirt.
Yeah. Don't die
so if you have a great idea, or you have something you think you just want to do, and just go ahead, do it, try. All you can do is try.
Yeah.
All you can do is try. So, for instance, how did I get my job in Maven?
Yeah.
I saw my previous the guy that had a position before me.
Yeah.
The fantastic lawyer I told you about.
Yeah.
He just posted on Twitter.
Yeah.
That, hey, are you interested in a position like this? Hit me up. He didn't necessarily put more details about the position.
Yeah.
So I just saw it and I DM'd him.
Yeah.
And I applied and I went for the interview and I had a whole lot of people better qualified than I was with degrees in UK and the US and what have you.
Yeah.
But I tried
and
I got the position.
Nice.
But if I was sitting down and wondering, I wouldn't have gotten it.
Oh yeah, very true. Don't die wondering. Nice.
Yeah, don't die wondering, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Kizito. It's so funny you're called Kizito. Like someone asked me like recently, like, hey, interviewing a person called Kizito. That sounds like such a Ugandan name. I was like, we'll ask him, but that's so interesting. But,
so it is a Ugandan name.
Yes, it is. Is it?
Yeah, it is. Facts.
Yeah, because like someone was like, hey, he's based in Nigeria? Is he Ugandan? I was like, I will ask him on the podcast to be but like he's Nigerian, but like it's very interesting that you have like a Ugandan name. Like most people are like, hey, you're doing Kizito, like, is he Ugandan? I was like, no, it's like Nigerian. It's like, oh, that's very amazing, which is also amazing to show that how we're all connected as a continent, and like yet we seem to.
You said it already. Harambe.
Yeah.
Ubuntu. I am because you exist.
Yes, very true. Ubuntu. Seems like we're all connected. But anyway, thank you so much, Zito, for your time. Just awesome catching up and getting to know you a bit more and sharing a bit of your story.
I appreciate it.
I hope everyone in the music space or people who just want to learn, who are tired of wondering, want to be inspired, can just like hopefully do something with themselves and like create some value. Yeah.
Thanks a great deal for having me, Gabriel.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing something phenomenal with this podcast. Thanks a great deal for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.